So Disha, we should be live now on YouTube.
Yes, Laura, I can see our channel.
Awesome.
Yes.
Perfect. That was a little too easy. Hello and welcome to everyone watching us on YouTube or catching the replay. We are going to start here in just a couple minutes. We wanted to start the stream in advance just to make sure we didn't have any technical glitches. And Disha will be monitoring kind of what's coming in on YouTube.
Hey, Laura, the document you're sharing in Zoom is not.
Yeah, I just realized I kind of switched screens. Let me, when I was clicking around there. Thank you for that. There we go. Back to where it should be.
It is.
All right, yeah, I think I had our planning document up. Thank you. All right, just a couple minutes till go time. We'll start right at the top of the hour. And I see Olu said, I love working with data and computers. It's a great role for both. Yeah. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see some of your faces too in the videos. Good to have you here. Hang says, I'm a recent MBA grad interested in breaking into product management. I saw many successful product managers who started their careers as a BA. So I want to learn more about BA after watching your useful YouTube videos about meetings and use cases. Awesome, welcome. Great to have you here. And yeah, product managers are definitely part business analysts. And Pam says, I love tech, being able to learn more and put skills to use. I'm looking forward to steps to how to gain experience. Great. We will be talking about that today. Hey, Tracy. I'm waving over there, but I know my camera's here. Yeah. All right, I am showing the top of the hour. So let's go ahead and dive right in here. Welcome to our coaching session. Great to have you here. Tayo says, hello, everyone. It feels good to be here. Good to have you here as well. I'm also joined today by Paula Bell, our program manager. Hi, Paula. And Disha Trivedi,
Hello.
one of our instructors. And I've got my slides up here, but if you see me looking over here, it's just like to run a session like this, you've got a lot going on. So actually all of your videos are over there. So I'm tempted to like look in that direction when I refer to you, but I know you're really seeing me look here. So I'm going to do my best to stay focused on the slides I have today. And we are really here to do a wrap up of the Launch Your Business Analyst Career online workshop and answer the questions that have been coming up from the workshop. And Paula and Disha are here to also help sharing their perspectives on your questions over the session and through the chat. Disha is focusing on YouTube. So those of you on YouTube, we can also bring your comments into the session. And Paula is focusing on Zoom. And there's some questions where I'm really looking forward to hearing their perspectives on things as well. But I'm going to start out today by just giving you kind of a quick overview and a recap of the Launch Your Business Analyst Career workshop that we just went through. So let me know in the chat if you've gone through all of it. I see Pam has said, I enjoyed all 3 sessions. Way to go, you, Pam. You've been through the whole thing. Or if you're like, no, I haven't quite gotten to it yet, or I just went through one piece, like that's totally cool as well. We're going to do a quick recap here at the beginning, but I'm not going to do the whole workshop because that would take the whole hour. So it looks like lots of people have gone through that. So that can kind of give me a sense of how deep to go. And then one of the questions, we'll be answering some frequently asked questions that have come up, and then also opening it up to questions that come up from you who are on the session live. And one of the questions has been how to learn more about the skills and about the next training session of the Business Analyst Blueprint program. So if people are interested in learning about that, I also have a bit to share about that program as well. And along the way, we'll take as many questions as we can from those joining us live. So get those in the chat for Paula and Disha to kind of bring in. And so Paula and Disha, both of you feel free to chime in, especially if you see something relevant to what we're talking about or kind of a nuance of the questions that we're covering. So yay, lots of people have watched all of them. Yay. All right. Okay, so the first, just to kind of quickly go through the journey that we went through in the workshop, we started with looking at the opportunities in business analysis. So for many of us, and we started with this question, kind of if you joined early, we talked a little bit about what excites you most about being a business analyst, right? That's like, what is the opportunity? And for most of us, it really starts with feeling like we're doing work that really is meaningful to us, right? Like this combination of analytical skills, like somebody said, I really like to work with computers and data, but also this sense of wanting to communicate and collaborate with other people and wanting to have that connection aspect of your work. So for me, it really was this mix of problem solving and communication and like feeling like I was using my mind in a very creative way to contribute at a higher level than I could in the work that I was doing before. And it comes also with a pretty tremendous salary potential. So usually the salary surveys, it depends on when they're done, but they're always in the range of $90,000 a year. And for some of the specific industry specialties, it can even go well beyond that. And of course, once you get into even senior level roles and leadership roles, it goes above that as well. And most business analysts who are new expect a big bump in their first, like what you would call their first official role. And when I went from quality assurance to business analysis, I received a 40% salary increase, and that's not all uncommon as well. And then the other part of the opportunity is really the career prospects. So when you think about organizations today, like they're changing and evolving, right? And wherever there is change, there is business analysis. It may not be by somebody with the business analyst title. If you went through the workshop, you saw that slide where I had like almost 24 different titles, which is really just scratching the surface of who might be doing business analysis. But there is always someone doing business analysis. And again, though, what this role really meant to me, and I know has meant to many of our instructors and many of our course participants, is like just doing something that we're really naturally good at, that we enjoy, and then being recognized for it as well, in terms of a formal career path and an official profession and title for things that we've been doing. And then I share the story of how this progression can work by sharing the story of Amelia McHenry and where she was, which a lot of people have identified with in the comments and even in some emails I've received, is like she had maxed out her salary in this technical writer role that she was in. And she actually got let go from that position because she was at the top of the salary bracket and she wasn't moving on. And so when it was time for their company to do layoffs, that was a big factor. And she ended up being part of that transition. So she started to look at like, what's next for me? So if technical writer, I was the best of the best and at the max of that, how can I leverage what I did there and keep growing and expanding so that I can fulfill my full potential and make the money that I want to make, right? And she discovered business analysis through that kind of start of the research. And then she did join our training program, the Business Analyst Blueprint. And some of the results that she leveraged were she was actually had made the switch where she was in a job with the title, but she didn't actually have the responsibility. So she still didn't have that confidence. In the program, she found other opportunities to really learn and leverage those skills and leverage that into a contract role, which gave her her first experience that had both the title and the responsibilities. And then she leveraged that into a lead business analyst role in an industry that she'd never worked in. It was actually auto insurance. And I always will remember this moment when she posted in the online group we ran at the time about getting that job. And it was a $90,000 a year job. So right at that salary level that we often hear, and what that meant to her. And that was a $20,000 salary bump at that time. And that like just opened up a world of opportunity for her. So the next question we get is like, yes, Laura, I want to be a business analyst. I know what the opportunities are, right? But how do I actually get in without the formal experience? And so I started to share how analyzing a business process is often the very first step, right? And we talked about how Wendy, who was a software developer, she analyzed her organization's custom code release process. This was a process that her software developers did in a manual fashion, and she presented that to her management. She found opportunities to improve that. She actually eliminated a project to automate it because they improved it so much. And as a result of that, and her being clear about her career intentions, they actually created a new business analyst role just for her. And then we looked at Lane, because often people hear that story and they're like, oh, that's great for Wendy because don't all BAs have to have a technical background? And that is not true. That's been coming up in the questions too. And that's why I wanted to highlight both people from a business background and a technical background. So Lane was in donor management in a nonprofit, not a technical role, very much working directly with donors, very communicative, collaborative. So she had the communication skills. She didn't have technical skills. And she started by analyzing her organization's restricted giving process, right? So this is when a donor makes a really large donation and there's some strings attached to it of how that money gets used. And the same thing happened to her. And she actually now is moving into roles that are more software related, like the implementation of their new CRM and some other roles like that. So she's moving into those roles, working on software projects at all. So once you start to get that underway, like analyzing a business process, what we see is it creates a lot of momentum, right? And you get asked to do more and more. And so you really need, business process analysis is a great place to start, but you really need a broader range of techniques to be successful on a software project. And so what are those techniques? And that's where we covered the whole gamut in part 3 of the Business Analyst Blueprint and what you need to be successful as a business analyst, specifically on a software project. So we covered the business level, which is that business process flow, the software level, which is what the software needs to do or what the functional requirements are. This is not requiring you to know how to code. But it's a really important skill set to help you know how to communicate with developers when you don't know how to code, and how to get to the level of technical details that you need to feel like you fully analyze the technical aspects of the requirements, even though you don't know how the system is actually built. And then we looked at the data or information level, and this is how you get clear on how information is managed and stored in your organization. And we also talked about how it's important to do the analysis, or what those techniques are, the things that you might sit and work at your computer on to kind of figure out how you're solving the problem, but also be out and communicating with stakeholders, right? Like business analysis does not happen in a vacuum. You really have to be discovering and analyzing and validating and communicating really well with your stakeholders as well. Okay. And then we did also, I just wanted to highlight the step-by-step to real confidence, right? So we looked at, okay, so here are the skills. What does it really look like to be confident in these skills? And what is the process that we've seen people go through to get that confidence? I talked about how it starts with absorbing the learning material that teaches you how to do that skill, right? And a lot of people spend a lot of time here and feel like they have to go from one thing to another because they're absorbing new material and new material and new material. And it is a really, really important step of the process. But what we see is when you actually start to apply it in a real world setting, where you get that on-the-job experience that most BA roles are looking for, you gain so much more confidence, right? So if you've been saying like, I've taken all these courses and I had this in college, or I've been reading things online, and I feel more confused than when I started, because often there's like conflicts between things, or people use different terminologies, right? So the material itself becomes overwhelming. What you need to do is get out of the learning and into application. So start applying it in a real world setting, and there is always opportunities to apply these techniques in your work, no matter what your professional role is. And so that's a good next step to be thinking about. And then how important it is to receive an expert or review. This could be a senior BA in your organization. It could be one of our instructors. It could be somebody, a mentor that you meet at the IIBA, but getting that outside perspective of your work so that you really feel like you know what you think you know. And Annette's story was a big one here, where Annette was in a lead BA role. She was not managing a team, but like leading a small team, but she didn't feel like she was ready for the next level because she didn't feel confident in how she was doing the skills. It just felt like her way of doing things. And she learned in the program that she actually knew more than she thought she knew. But it didn't matter until she had that confidence that came from an expert review. And then within a year, or actually probably like 6 months, she was actually managing a team of 10 or more junior business analysts and training them from the ground up using the materials that she learned in the course. And Manzoli is another example, and he had a lot of credentials, including his CBAT. So he was already certified. We're going to answer questions about certifications here in a minute, but he wasn't sure he was doing the BA work the way that it would work in new domains, right? Or he was coming from a business background and had a lot of expertise. And so by going through this 3-step process, he gained that confidence as well, and he was able to move into a senior level role in a new domain where he was not the business expert and be successful as well. All right, so that's just our quick overview of the workshop. Again, it was probably over an hour of content that I tried to distill there. And now I wanted to just chime in or kind of go through some of the questions that we've received. So a big one has been about industry experience. So why is this so common? And there are selected industries that require industry experience on top of business analysis experience. And so my advice to people who are relatively new to the profession is to focus on the industries that you have past experience in, even if it's not in a business analyst role, or where they're not as clear cut about having an industry experience requirement. So yes, in theory, any great BA can be successful in any BA role, and the industry experience requirement is kind of a false one in a lot of cases, but so many employers are so hooked into thinking that this is important that you're not going to necessarily fight that fight when you are applying for your first business analyst job. And Paula, you do a lot of mentoring with business analysts too on their job search. I was interested to hear your perspective on this one too.
Yeah, so, and I do a lot of hiring too, right?
Good point. Yeah.
in my day job. So what I would say is I totally echo what you just said, Laura, on finding that industry that you've either worked in or even you're passionate about, because the beauty of business analysis is the skills are transferable, right? So I've been in multiple different industries. I have been in media. I've worked with the court system as far as like judges, public defenders. I've worked in finance, banking, mortgage, student loans. And in all of those roles, I've used business analysis skill set. But I've never, ever in my career been actually called a business analyst. And I have 22 years of experience, but I've never held the title of business analyst ever in my career. And I've been very successful in my career. The industry experience for me has taught me that there's really not a lot of difference in the industries. All industries have problems that need to be solved. Yeah, the terminology might be a little bit different. The vernacular might be a little bit different, but the way you approach the work is relatively fundamental and the same. So don't let the industry stop you. What I tell the clients that I work with who work with me is, at the end of the day, do you have the skill that they're asking for? Right. Now, if they specifically say, we want somebody that's been in the finance industry, I think that's where I've tried to work with recruiters and companies to say, you're being a little bit too in a box, right? Because just because somebody hasn't worked in finance doesn't mean they can't bring value to your organization. That you probably want an outside perspective. So some of that's going to happen, and some of it you're not going to be able to get around. But at the end of the day, it's about the value you bring to the organization. And as a business analyst, we bring a lot of value with a different skill set. So if you find that you're looking into a job and they say they want somebody who has who's worked in the insurance industry and you haven't, and that's the only thing you haven't done, I've encouraged people to apply anyway. because you have a ton of other skills that can add value to that organization. And then that's how you get to learn the industry. Because sometimes they put that in there to vet out the candidate pool, but then sometimes they look at a resume and they're like, oh, I don't care if they don't have the industry experience. This person sounds like they're a rock star. Let's at least have a conversation. So I would say don't let that deter you from applying. Still apply. Some companies hold it heavier than others, but again, you bring a ton of value with the skill that you have, and I'm a witness to it. I've been in many different industries where every time I walked into these industries, I had no experience in the industry, so it's all brand new, and I still was able to do the job and got them under my belt. So that would be my advice. Don't let it stop you. Find one you're passionate about, and if there is an industry that you're passionate about, you don't have that experience, keep pushing until you can get your foot in that door to get that experience.
Yeah, that's a great point about the passion too. Like, I think people look at it and they're like, well, every job, how do I qualify for all these BA jobs? Because they all have industry experience requirements and they're all different, right? There's no way until in the next 10 years, you're going to get 10 years of experience in 5 different industries, right? So you do want to pick one that you're interested in. And I love that idea of applying anyways, because you never know what's going to happen and who's applying. I think when I was coaching people specifically on this, what I would see those people would get really frustrated that they didn't get the interview. And so I think you do have to understand if that's something that they're filtering on and you just don't make it through that process, like don't get hung up on it and move on, right? Like, but you do never know when like you might just be in the right place at the right time and they might be willing to be lenient on that requirement. Yeah.
Yes.
Good one. Yeah, I would encourage you, whether you're listening in on Zoom or on YouTube, to go ahead and get questions in as well so that we can answer your questions too.
Well, Laura, we do have a question, it looks like, in our Zoom session. Dale Mark has a hand raised. Do you want to take questions live?
We'll take questions live, like at the end. Yeah, but if it's in chat, we'll work it in the next. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, and then another question we received on the training or the workshop was like, why don't employers value my transferable skills? And I see this one a lot where people have a lot of transferable skills in their background, like from related roles. So I just walked you through the key skills, right, and how important some of those were. But you might have had a different title, or like Paula said, never had the BA title. I've actually never had the BA title either, right? So like it's kind of it's a little bit of a nuance. I had manager business analysis once. So I've never actually just had the title straight business analyst. I was a systems analyst and then enterprise solutions director, so kind of all different titles. But so you have to do the work for a recruiter, I think, or an employer who's reviewing your resume. So they're not going to read into your resume. So they're not going to say, oh, like, I really want a business analyst, and I'd love a business analyst who used to be a customer service representative or used to be a support analyst, right? They want to see somebody with a business analyst experience. Now, if you did that work under a different title, you need to reframe it and use the right terminology and have examples that you can share and be really confident in your ability to do the work that they're asking you to do. And I think that's how employers start to value it, because I've seen people like make the shift and see themselves, like see their career history as business analysis and then go right into like senior level business analyst roles, right? Because they're able to demonstrate that they have those transferable skills. So I don't think employers don't value the transferable skills. I think we just need to do the work of making sure that they can connect the dots. And Paula, is there anything you wanted to add to that one?
I think you pretty much said it, Laura. I think a lot of times for what I've seen from people, industry organizations that are hiring, whether it's even headhunters too, because I've had many conversations with recruiters, headhunters, hiring managers. Sometimes they don't really understand what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. So they don't even understand the terminology, right? They just know that this is what I think I need, but they're really not sure what they need. And so sometimes I've had to, even as a hiring manager, go back to my recruiter and say to them, why didn't this person come to me? Why didn't they get to me? And I found that sometimes they don't even understand the terminology that's used and what they're recruiting for. So the more that you can use the same sort of terminology that is in a job that you're applying for, or just use that terminology in day-to-day conversations in an organization, the better it's going to be, because then you have that sort of connection that there's a common way of communicating in language. Because as you said, Laura, the recruiters and some of even the headhunters, even hiring managers may not catch if you're not real clear in talking in their language that you have the skills that they're looking for. So you have to be very intentional and conscious of that. But other than that, I don't really have anything more to add.
And I that made me think of something else too, because you also then can use a little bit of your business analysis skills to discover those requirements, especially with a recruiter who might just be looking for a specific thing. I remember teaching the use cases in wireframes course like years ago when we still did the individual courses live, and somebody's like, I took this course because somebody asked me in an interview if I knew how to do wireframes. And then I was in the course and I just realized, like, I've been doing wireframes and calling them mock-ups for years. And they said, do you know how to do wireframes? And I said, no. Right. So that's part of like knowing the terminology and knowing that some of these things are more equivalent than you think, and being able to frame your experience, or even saying, well, I've done this thing that might be similar. Can you tell me what wireframing looks like to you? And so just using the skills to communicate about that as well. All right, thanks for that, Paula. And just an example of that, one of our past Blueprint participants was Rashni Dominic, and she was at the British Red Cross was in a support analyst role. And her frustration was that she was trying to move into business analysis roles, and recruiters kept calling her for more support analyst roles, right? So pretty much exactly just what we've been talking about. Like she had some of the transferable skills, but she was really just getting calls for the exact role which she was in, which she wanted to move outside of. So in the Business Analyst Blueprint, she started analyzing a business process, just like we've talked about, and really putting the word out in her organization that she was doing these things, started connecting with her project managers, and she found a project manager who was like so excited to have her do business analysis. And just 4 weeks into the program, she actually moved into a part-time business analyst role, meaning she had the opportunity to be half-time support analyst, half-time business analyst. And so things can really happen that quickly when you start to use some of these techniques and put some of the connection pieces in place as well. And I actually just saw somebody ask this question in the chat while you were talking, Paula, so I'm kind of glad it's our next question. I think it was Derek asked about, there was somebody who asked about having a career break. So this has come up a lot in this version of the workshop. Like, I've had a few years off, maybe to raise young children or to take care of my parents or to travel the world or whatever, right? There's lots and lots of reasons that this happens these days. And I honestly think it's becoming more and more common to have a career break of some length. And so you really, like, my advice is, you need a clear reason and an explanation. So just knowing, being able to share, why did you have a break? What was the explanation for that? Why are you ready to get back into the workforce? And the nice thing about business analysis is that a lot of the skills that you have are really, like, they don't have a short shelf life. They have a very long shelf life. Like, the techniques that we teach and the way that you think as a business analyst, your communication skills, the way you think about problems, like that knowledge, it's like learning to ride a bike. It doesn't go away. And it doesn't become irrelevant. Unlike, if you were an expert in some technology 10 years ago, like that might be totally dated, and you might have the concepts to learn a new technology, but you might really have to sit down and learn technology. Business analysis, you want to refresh yourself on what the capabilities of technology are today and kind of get yourself up to speed and get yourself in that internal confidence state. But your skills are very, very transferable. And Disha, I know I had asked if you wanted to share a little bit more about this as well. And I think we had a couple course participants in this exact situation in the last few sessions.
Yeah, so I took a 6-month break with my first child, and I think the most common thoughts that come to our minds are that will I be able to come back to a certain position or a certain level of a position, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or will I be able to make a comeback at all or not, right? But I think the focus needs to be on the fact that, we have the courage to prioritize in life, right? Because like you said, there could be several different reasons for why people take a break. So I think as long as we show that we were effective at what we were doing before we took the break and that we have kept up to date, I think, and like you said, giving a clear reason as to why somebody took a break, I think that should be sufficient.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And like, what was your transition back like after a few months?
It was actually, it was, it was good and unexpected because I took a break after my second child, more to take care of my first one. And before that, I had been working from home, and I was like, okay, so now I need to get ready to get into office and, the commute and everything. And I interviewed for 2 positions, ended up getting offers for both, and I was able to negotiate a work from home situation. And it was, I mean, I think it was a pleasant surprise to, to get exactly what I wanted. Yes.
That's awesome. And so it really, you were able to still negotiate multiple offers and have a position of strength, and it didn't have a negative effect. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
And did we have any other questions in the chat about this specifically?
So I saw one regarding career break from Scott.
Okay, so I think
that was good.
Did we address
that? Was the one I think you were referencing. Yeah. Awesome. Other than that, no, on my side.
Okay, very cool. All right, and just as another example of this, there's a lot of ways to add value during a career break. So Perry, who is in Jersey, which is a British island, he was not employed during his participation in the Blueprint either. And he had actually completed 4 of the 5 exams for his BCS, which is a certification that's more common in the UK. But he felt like he hadn't really improved his practical skill set, right? So while he was in the Blueprint, he volunteered at a local charity, and he did all the techniques that we just talked about: process analysis, software requirements, the data modeling, and had a lot of ahas that actually increased his confidence. So soon after finishing the Blueprint, he actually was in the situation Disha was in, where he had 2 job offers at the same time. And that really led to kind of a really big difference for him. And just even the Blueprint experience helped him, as he says here, like boost his confidence in his practical BA skills, because he had all the book knowledge and he even had the title in his background, but he kept looking at the jobs he wanted to apply for and didn't feel like he had the experience in those skills. And so it was that confidence that really shifted things that led to these job offers for him. All right. And this is kind of our last prepared question. And then I definitely want to go into other questions that are coming in too, because I can see the chat has been filling up quite a bit. But we wanted to talk a little bit about certification, and this has come up a lot. So if you're interested or thinking about certification, I would love to see that in the chat box as well. But like Perry's story was an example of that. He was like, his BCS prep didn't really help him with the confidence, right? He felt book smart, but not practical smart. And that's a common experience that many professionals feel when they go through a professional certification. All 3 of us are certified, and I feel like that was an important milestone in my career. But it was something that happened much later in my career, not as part of getting started. It's like a nice edge at the start of your career, but it's not a guarantee. Employers are still going to want to hear about experience. And so I would love to hear from you, Paula, and then Disha, about like when you chose to get your certification and what drove that decision as well.
Yeah, Paula, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can go. So quite honestly, Laura, I didn't want to get my certification because I have test anxiety and I cannot stand taking tests. So the certification stressed me out. Yep. It was worse than having my twins, in my opinion, because it stressed me out, and that's how much I can't stand taking tests. The reason I took it, though, is because I got called out at the Building Business Capability Conference in social media of why, by many that I know who are mentors and people who I speak with, why do I not have my CBAP? So I love challenges too. So they challenged me. And one of my mentors told me, if you do it and you're successful, I will pay the fee for you to take the exam. And so I was like, okay, I'll take a challenge. And that's the reason I got certified, because I was already BA certified through another company before IIBA came out with it. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit of why I was procrastinating. I didn't want to go through that again. But I will say, I am glad I did the certification, not just to get the certification, but to overcome that whole test anxiety thing. Mm-hmm. I was limiting myself there with my own mentality. But it also is great to have that credibility behind my name, behind what I do, that yes, I take business analysis seriously, and I'm certified doing it. And I also watched you actually, what I thought was very interesting is you actually let us go along with you on your journey on getting certified, right? And I was like, you are so much bolder and braver than I am. I don't know if
I knew I wouldn't do it unless I committed publicly, because I don't have test anxiety, but like oh my gosh, I resisted preparing for that exam so much. There's a reason that we do not offer exam prep at Bridging the Gap, because it would drive me crazy, like literally, to build those kind of programs. So I just had to put it out there. And Tish, I think we got certified about the same time, right? You were following along.
We did, yes, we did. Yes, and I think you were pregnant as well.
Yep. I took the CBAP when I was 8 months pregnant with my first daughter. So.
Yes, so for me it was I wanted to get the certification before I stepped into motherhood, because I wasn't sure what was going to come my way, and in case I needed to take a break, I just wanted to have an edge. But I completely agree with you that certification is one thing, but the experience counts for much more. And I think not just only in terms of what the employers or the recruiters would look for, but also the confidence that it gives you, right? When you have practiced business analysis in different settings, I think that will give you much more confidence than the certification. The certification, of course, has its value. And these days, actually, a lot of job requirements do ask for CBAP, but the experience kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah. And I do think it's really hard to prepare for something like the CBAP until you've done business analysis in a few different projects or organizations, and kind of, because you really have to take that entire body of knowledge and see the connections.
Yes.
And if you just try to absorb it in an abstract way, it's a very difficult thing to do.
I would like to add though, Laura, that when we did the certification, we just had the option of CBAP, versus now, there are 3 different levels.
Yes.
So so that's a good option.
Yeah. So the ECBA is a bit easier and can kind of give you a little bit of an edge to get into.
Yes. I think it's like it's like smaller steps, right? Like doing it in smaller steps.
Yeah.
To CBAP. Yeah.
Awesome. I see a couple of questions in the chat. Anna, I really want to take the ECBA exam. I wonder if I should study for the exam, but to learn the basic activities as a BA. Is that a better approach? I kind of feel like learning how to do business analysis will set you up better from a being successful as a business analyst perspective. So Anna, just think about, why do you want to take the ECBA exam, and what do you want to get out of the process of learning for it too? Janine asked, do you need to prepare a course to prepare, or does the BABOK provide necessary detail? Most people need at least some sort of study group, and for me, I did take a course because I was running Bridging the Gap at the time, and I was evaluating providers to be partners with. So that was part of the reason I took a course. But I definitely needed the exam simulators, because the exam process itself is not inconsequential, and you want to test your knowledge. So I would definitely say you need some sort of resource that helps you make sure you're absorbing the material in the way that's going to help you pass the test. Again, it may or may not align to your experience. And then questions on the CBAP versus the PMI PBA. There are so many certifications. Yes. So PMIs, PBA is more for people who are in the project world. I think CBAP has just a little bit more stature in the profession still than the PBA, but depending on your organization and your industry. Paula or Disha, any thoughts on the PBA specifically? I think we're just kind of starting to see it become more common.
Yeah, nothing more from me on that one. I haven't been involved or done too much with the PMI certification for when it came out. I would, frankly, and I'm really not being biased here, but if you're looking into the business analysis, I would stick with the IIBA certifications because there are many now, and there's actual additional certifications, like Disha said. They even have a data analytics one now. There's many different certifications that you can get. I would stick with the IIBA from a BA discipline perspective.
I agree. I think when I looked at it last, the PMI business analyst certification, I think that was more for the project managers to understand the business analysis side of things.
Yeah.
So I agree with Paula.
Awesome. All right. And then the last question that we definitely wanted to cover was, we've been getting a lot of questions about, well, how can I actually gain confidence in these skills then? And because we are getting ready to start the next session of the blueprint, we've received a lot of questions about that as well. So if you would like to know more about the program, could you just type me a quick yes in the chat box? So I can make sure.
You do have some, Laura.
I do have some. All right.
Yeah,
I got a yes with like 5 explanations.
Yeah,
all right. It's always good to know, right? All right. So I'm excited. We're super excited about the blueprint. And then we're going to answer some additional questions that have come in as well. So Paula and Disha, if you could each get like maybe a couple ready so that we have kind of a fire round after this, that would be great too. And then, so what is it? The Business Analyst Blueprint, it's an online interactive training program that really helps you gain the confidence in all of these skills. So we have learning modules and lessons on each of these skills. We've already covered these in depth, so I'm not going to go into them more detail here, but I do just want to share a bit about how the program works, because this is not a typical training program. And so I do want to just explain how it works so you can see the benefits of the program. So it's really structured and specifically to help you gain confidence. So the first piece of this is on-demand training. So you get access to our course platform where we have videos and audios and transcripts of every lesson, so you can consume the information in any way that works for you, whenever it works for you, whether that's in the evenings or on the weekends or during your lunch breaks at work. And every course also every lesson also comes with like templates, white files, checklists, something that you can actually use to apply what you're learning. So you learn how to do the techniques, and you also have a template or a swipe file that you can use that helps you use the technique. And then we really emphasize your real world application. Remember, this is the second step to gaining confidence. All the learning is great. It's an important part of the puzzle, right? You need access to that practical way of learning and absorbing the information. But you also need the structure and the accountability to actually go out and do the work. And so within the blueprint, we invite you to use the BA techniques in your work and give you ideas and opportunities and help you find opportunities to do this. Volunteering also works. That's what Perry did in between positions. That's what Amelia did, even though she had the title, but she didn't have the opportunity at work. So often there's an opportunity outside your role, but very often there's an opportunity inside your role. And so we really help you find that opportunity and make the most of it. And the reason this is important is because two things happen. One, when you actually do it in a real world setting, it's a lot more confidence building than when you say work with a fictitious case study that might be part of a typical training course. And it also creates the momentum, the experience that we saw, like Wendy have and Lane have, where they analyzed those processes and then they got noticed for that. And then they got moved into the BA role. It creates that momentum for you. And if you're already in a BA role, it means that you get feedback on the work that you're doing, which brings up different challenges than just working through a case study. And then the third piece of this is our instructor support. So you've already met Paula and Disha. We have three other 4 other instructors actually also on our team, and it's very individualized. So you get to email in your questions if you have a question about the course materials. You get an individual feedback on your workbook. So as you go through each of the modules that's covered in the blueprint, you get feedback on that from our instructors and an assessment of whether or not it really meets industry standards, and an opportunity to resubmit to meet those standards so that you have an opportunity to improve. We have a bunch of bonus live webinars as part of the blueprint where we help you get a kickstart on your project and answer questions. And then we also have several instructor hours where we do group coaching. And this is a time where you get to bring your specific questions about where you're stuck in your workbook or what's not clear, and work through those with an instructor. And you also get to learn from your peers. And so one of the things that I think happens when you're in a program like this is you start to see other people's examples of their work, and you start to see how, like what Paula was saying of like, I was relevant in all these different industries. You start to learn what business analysis looks like in those other industries as well. So at the end, you do receive 36 professional credits, provided you meet the standards of the course of all the modules. And that is what you need to apply for either IIBA or PMI certifications. So if you are thinking about certification, this is a path to getting the professional credits you need to apply for those certifications. And I really do think these 3 pieces together is what truly builds confidence. And the last day to register is February 25th, and we get started with our program kickoff on February 27th, which is next Thursday. Okay, so one of the questions we often receive here is like, how can I create a work sample if I'm not currently employed as a business analyst? I did speak to this already with some of our examples, but we do host bonus workshops inside the program at the beginning of each module that are specifically designed to help you find your example, fine tune your example, like get feedback from the instructor of like, no, that's not really quite a process, but this might be a process in that same area, kind of get a kickstart on it so that you're not just starting from a blank page. And, you know, we shared the story about how Amelia actually volunteered through her husband's employer to map out an infrastructure process. So she went outside of her organization. Another example I have to share with you is Todd Fleming. He's out in this very remote area of Summers, Montana. And he actually volunteered with his previous employer. So he was more in a software role and volunteered with his previous employer. He found out that they were developing, a merger was developing. And he said, you know, I'm developing these new skills. Can I just come and do a little bit of pro bono work for you to help you with some of these things, just to get the practical experience? And so he started to do some business process work, and then they realized there were bigger gaps to be filled in terms of how they were going to handle that merger. And then he ended up showing some of those examples of what he was creating. And then he got he got a paying contract, like a part-time paying contract with that company. So just as a result of like taking that initiative to say, I have, you know, sometimes it's just the excuse, right? Like I have to do this because I'm in this program. He actually set off that ripple effect of positives that ended up with paying contract work with the company. Okay, so I'm sure you're wondering what the investment is. And I will say, like, the investment in the program, it includes all of those course materials, all of the webinars, the instructor hours, the templates, the checklists, the swipe files, that individual instructor support. This is a 4 to 5 month program. So it's spaced out over several months. So it's not like a crash course where you do it all at once. We space it out over several months so that you have adequate time to actually learn and apply as you go. And the investment is either one payment of $2,997 USD, and you can save a little by the full payment, or 4 monthly payments of $847 USD. And again, the last day to register is February 25th. So I think, Paula and Disha, if you want to share that link in the chat boxes for anybody that's interested in kind of checking out the offer and learning a bit more about it. But at this point, I just did want to answer that question because we had a lot of interest in the program. And I'd love to answer any other questions you have, whether they're about the Blueprint program or about the workshop or other questions coming up for you at this time. Okay. Sushani is asking, how do I register for the program? So Paula's going to share that link in the chat box. Okay. Let's see. So do we, no worries, no worries. So do we have another question that we should move on to at this point? I have not been keeping up with the chat box. Is there anything on YouTube? I don't want to leave our YouTube people hanging.
Oh, there was one that just came in asking if there is any discount.
We do discounts for past participants. So if you have participated in another program with us before, we can do discounts for that. But that's otherwise, it is actually a package deal over investing in our other programs individually. We don't do any other discounts on it. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Paula did get that link in the chat box. Olivia is asking, can you complete the program at a faster pace? Not the program itself. We do have on-demand courses that you can go through if you would like to go kind of and give yourself a crash course. Yeah, feel free to email me specifically of what you're looking at, and we'll see what the best options would be for you, Olivia. Kalani asked, does the Blueprint program include business process flow diagrams and wireframes? Yes, we cover business process analysis, use cases and wireframes, and data modeling for business analysts. Okay.
We do have a question. So are you only looking at questions right now, Laura, about Blueprint program, or any question?
Anything, yeah, either one.
Okay. Okay. We do have a question on what are your thoughts on Agile in business analysis?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a general question. I think as business analysts, like we need to be aware, like we're going to work on Agile teams when we are working on software projects. But the core principles of Agile do not define a business analysis process. So all of the techniques that we teach in the Blueprint, starting with analyzing the business process, to thinking through the functional requirements in a use case, to data modeling, like all of those are still important. And then they get wrapped up into user stories. So for an Agile software development team. But most of the Agile literature does not teach you how to do business analysis. It's more about managing the software implementation. And so I think it's a great hand in hand to do these two together. Anything that you would add to that, Paula?
No.
Okay.
Let's
see. I see you've both been responding to all kinds of stuff in the chat. So thank you so much for that.
Yes.
So that people can be well supported. Yeah.
You have a question. Would we get to keep all the templates you guys offer on this program, access to the course to listen more than once?
Yeah, so all the templates, audio, transcripts are downloadable. And we actually do package up the videos to download as well after the program is completed. So you get to download that for your future use, and you get 6 months access to the course platform. So you have access to it for your full participation. And then the easiest way to refer back to it in the future is to download it for your own use. Great question. Okay. We had one from Derek up at the beginning. Do the majority of business analyst assignments revolve around some sort of software improvement? Could a project revolve around something marketing related? Yeah, so definitely any sort of improvement. So something marketing related is actually going to be a process improvement because you're improving a marketing process, or you're improving. I used to work most of my early days as a business analyst. I was working on online content products. And so to our deficit, I think we didn't do a lot of business process analysis unless it affected our internal systems, because we're like, oh, we're building this for end users, right? And like, it's all about the software and what the software can do. But as I matured, I realized that we really needed to understand how that product was playing a role in that end user's business process. So even a product, you really want to be thinking about how does this fit into the process that our customers use if we're building a product for them. Or if it's a marketing, it's still a process. There's still business. Just like the software development, the custom code process, like is not, that's an internal process, right? It's still a process of how we release custom code to our organizations. So definitely you can do business analysis in a lot of contexts. We really focus at Bridging the Gap on projects in business analysis that have some sort of significant software element, though definitely the business process part of the blueprint is relevant regardless. I just kind of scroll down for the more recent comments now. Let's see. David asked, do we go anywhere near UML? Not really. We teach use cases in a textual format, and we teach ERDs, but we teach them from a very business-focused way. I see that Disha answered that already. Yeah. But you learn like the core, you learn the syntax of an ERD that you would use in a more development-focused way, but you learn it from a business-focused way. So you learn the skills that would help you read that kind of an ERD and interpret it and understand it. But you wouldn't learn how to like create a database in kind of thing, because it's not a technical course. Yeah.
And Laura, I would also like to add that it's we also that also teaches object level thinking and analysis.
Yeah.
So with those two, like with the ERD and use case, the understanding can be extended to other UML diagrams as well.
Gotcha. Thoughts on the CBDA certification? It's so different from the CBAP. Yeah, I think if you want to go into data analysis, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the direction that IIBA is going with some of these specialized certifications, to be honest. So it's really like, do you want to go in the direction of doing more data analysis, which is different than data modeling? So the data modeling that we cover in the blueprint is how is information stored in your organization in order to do a process? How do we actually store information and organize information? What are the key concepts and terms that we need to understand? Where the analysis is like, how do I actually query all of that data to get understanding and build reports and make different business decisions? So there's a difference there between analysis and modeling. And I'm not an expert in analysis or UML, as you can probably see. And so we don't cover that in the blueprint. And I have kind of only taken a cursory look for that reason at the new CBDA certification. Yeah. All right. Oh, wow. Comments are flying in. Let's see. Scott asked, do you cover FSDs? That's I'm assuming that's functional software documents, something along those lines.
Probably functional specification document.
Functional specification documents. So we don't cover like a functional specification document per se. We cover smaller documents that help us build more of those specification documents. So the techniques that we cover that would be part of a functional specification document would be the use cases and the wireframes, which is a use case being a step-by-step flow of how a user interacts with a system to achieve a specific goal. And my experience is when I think in use cases, it's a way better way to engage with a business stakeholder about what those functional requirements are than reviewing a long list of functional requirements that you might include in a typical functional requirements document of some sort. So that's why we teach use cases, because it's the analytical thinking capability that allows you to discover and analyze those requirements effectively. I realize we're getting towards the top of the hour here. I'm happy to stay on for a few additional questions, but Disha or Paula, I know you might have to run off to other things, so feel free if you do have to.
Yeah, I can stay on for a few more.
Okay. Bangalo asks, what advice as an entrepreneur to do BA? Is BA a necessity for entrepreneurs? Oh, this is interesting. Paula, maybe you can give some final thoughts on this one before you leave, because I consider myself an entrepreneur, and we are getting our business process house in order these days.
Right. So, and so I did answer a little bit in the chat, but
okay.
I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I work with Laura, and I have my own business as well. And all of the skills I've used as a BA, I use as an entrepreneur. Like, I was just working with Laura doing a whole mind map on just roles and responsibilities in her company and who's doing what and how, right? And that's a skill you use when you start working through just trying to understand for your organization, right? That's sort of like your enterprise analysis, which they talk about in the BA box. Yeah. We've also done process modeling for your own company. I've done it for my own company, where we're just trying to define what processes are. So the technical skills and the interpersonal, like communication, relationship building, all of that you use as an entrepreneur. And I think even more so just by the way you have to think as you build out your business. So I would say definitely, I'm not saying it's a necessity. Like, if you're not a BA, you're not going to be a successful entrepreneur. No. But I have found that because I was a BA and a developer, and I've done a lot of different roles, all of those skills has transferred into me being a successful entrepreneur. So it does help. You just have to figure out understand what a BA does, and then determine what domain you're going to work in and where you're going to fit. A lot of this is a lot of self-reflection, right? You got to figure out what you want to do and what domain you want to work in. But the blueprint helps you to understand at a very nice level of what it takes and what you'd be doing as a BA. So it's a great program to go through if you're just trying to figure that out as well.
Yeah.
And so, Laura, I am going to drop off because I do have to kick off another call. But it was great talking to everyone. Thank you, Disha, for being my sidekick today, helping me with the chat.
Laura, we have one from Banklo, which I think will be beneficial to everybody. So he says,
Thank you, Paula. Go ahead, Disha. Sorry.
Hi, Paula. He says that I have not had any formal training on business analysis, but have done some studying on my own. So where do you advise me to start?
Yeah, and maybe share in the chat, Banglo, as well, like, what are you doing now, right? So where are you at now career-wise? Because that really informs it. So, because my advice would always be to just start applying these techniques where you're at, and we can give you some more specific advice around that if you want to share what you're doing now. And I also thought Anna's question was a good one. Is it for people with no experience in business analysis? We really do structure the program for people who are new to business analysis or people who are more experienced, but often it's people who have not had formal training or haven't had the opportunity to apply formal training in their work. So as someone new to business analysis, one of the nice things about the blueprint is we start with the techniques, and you can almost always find an opportunity to apply a technique, even if you're not a BA on like an end-to-end project. And so you really kind of just start working your way in the ways that we've seen in some of these case studies. And then if you are a more experienced business analyst, the way that it tends to help you is like, it gives you that structure for like, oh, this is why I've been like what I've been doing all along is successful, which helps you train and mentor other BAs like we saw with Annette. Or it often points out like the sticking points, the things that are frustrating to you, like one of Perry's experiences, like, I really thought I was really good at process flows, but then I went through the training and like the rigor in which some of these nuances and structuring the language were applied. Like, I learned why I always had trouble with a certain kind of scenario on my process flows, right? So it gives you that next level edge as well. So we do have people in both of those stages of their careers in the program. Yeah. Great question. And Bankolo says, senior sales supervisor after handling a trade marketing role. Awesome. So like as a sales supervisor, you can look at your sales processes. So especially in a supervisor role, we see people like look at the processes within your department and start analyzing those and modeling those. Look at the software you have for your department. Are you using a customer relationship management system or a CRM? Do you need enhancements to that system to better improve how your organization works? I would just start right there, start applying some of these techniques and seeing where that gets you in terms of building up the experience. Great question. Okay. All right. And I'm just going to hang out in case there's any other questions, whether it's about the blueprint or general career questions. Just want to make sure we had a chance to answer things from everyone.
Okay.
Sometimes
Right.
people
And
are
Laura, I'm gonna exit.
Okay.
But thanks everybody and good luck.
Thanks, Disha. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Yeah. All right. Oh, Karen, thank you for getting your question in again, because the chat was quite fast and furious. So I'm considering taking a course on the CBAP exam. I've been working as an analyst in various titles for 15 years, but never went for certification. Is taking a course via IIBA the ideal and safest route to take the course and pass the exam? I want to combat ageism, being a 50+ CBAP female. So, we did kind of talk a little bit about exam prep. So if your goal is purely to get your CBAP, then I would look for like a CBAP study group and a CBAP, either a prep course, but at least an exam simulator. It really depends on what your test taking skills are like and what your study habits are like. So when I prepared for the CBAP, I literally sat down with the book and I wrote notes on every chapter until I felt like I absorbed that knowledge. And then I took an exam on just that chapter, and then I would see what I was absorbing and what I wasn't absorbing, and I would go back and study again until I learned how to study in a way that allowed me to pass the exams through the simulator. And that's how I prepared for the CBAP. So there is a certain nuance to preparing for the exam. So if your whole goal is just the CBAP exam, like the Blueprint course is not the right fit for you, because we don't teach CBAP prep. But for somebody who's newer or who maybe hasn't had formal training and who wants more of an introduction into how these things work before sitting down and kind of doing more of that test prep, then it is a great option. So the safest route would be to take a CBAP prep course from a provider who has a great track record helping people pass the exam, if that's your full goal. Okay. Scott asks, is anyone in the banking and capital markets? I don't know if anybody on the call is, but definitely there are BAs in those industries. There's BAs in every industries. Kalani asks, great question. How many hours a week do we spend for the course and the exercises? So we recommend planning 2 to 3 hours a week over the 4 to 5 months. So in some weeks, it's going to be going through the learning materials, and other weeks, it's going to be more focused on application. Now, that's kind of a minimum to keep on schedule with the course and to finish the course successfully within the time frame. Some people kind of like are overachievers and love to like go through things multiple times, or some people are really new to the material and kind of find that they need to go through it multiple times to complete those exercises. So that's a general guideline, but it's not like a full-time course for 4 months, right? It's meant to be something that you can do alongside of your job and your other commitments, but it is something that you need to carve out time for and make a priority in order to make sure you're completing it on time. And Pam asks, is there an exam simulator for the ECBA? I would assume that there is, but I don't know that off the top of my head. Okay, and Mustafa, how deep is the BA really involved in the healthcare industry? Oh, huge. Healthcare industry is huge for business analysts. When you think about the electronic medical records, all of those projects are managed by business analysts. Health insurance, all those systems are managed by business analysts. In the individual doctor's practice, it's probably not a business analyst doing that. If they're transitioning or improving their processes, it's probably somebody in more of a management role. But all healthcare related organizations, they have websites, they have systems, and there's business analysis going and managing the processes and the development of those systems. All right. Well, those were some great questions. Thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you for joining me today. If you haven't yet checked out the rest of the workshop, make sure to go back and check out the free workshop as well. We're going to be leaving that up for a few more days. And if you do want to join us for the blueprint, we kind of snuck registration open for those of you who were listening in to the live session here, and it will officially open tomorrow, but we'd be happy to have you join tonight. You do get immediate access to that first set of materials. So if there's a good reason to kind of join, and you can get a head start and kind of get into the course platform and see what it's all about. Oh, I saw one last question. Mustafa said, how deep is the, oh no, sorry, Zoom presents that in a weird way. It looked like a new question, but it was just a thank you. You're welcome, Mustafa. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I hope that you can join us for the blueprint. And if not, I hope that you just have a lot of benefits from today's session and also from the workshop that we're providing. And I always like to say success, we build our profession one business analyst at a time, and success starts with you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great day, everyone.